that learning to fly is a challenging and rewarding accomplishment would be the understatement of the year. It's great, and there's nothing quite like it, as you're already well aware. And you can take pride in your decision to become a pilot and join this relatively small elite group, the aviation community. There are only approximately 700,000 active pilots in the U.S., and that includes airline, commercial, as well as we general aviation people. Our number, however, would be much greater were it not for the atrocious dropout rate. As a daily average nationwide, 238 people take their first flight training lesson. Regrettably, only 94 will go on to finish training and earn the license. The other 144, an overwhelming 60% majority, become discouraged, give up, and quit. Why? It's well known that we can learn from the mistakes of others, and hopefully you'll profit by avoiding these same mistakes. Around the operations room at practically any training airport, you'll find many partially filled and dust-gathering logbooks whose owners have stopped training. If you ask those people, why did you quit? The number one response would be money. I ran over my budget before I knew what was happening. It cost me a lot more to learn to fly than I originally thought. For private pilot certification, the law requires a minimum of 40 hours flight time, 20 hours dual, 20 hours solo. Yet typically, an applicant for the flight test, commonly called a check ride, has flown 70 hours, well over the required minimum. That additional time is, of course, quite costly and discouraging, and is in the form of remedial make-up flying lessons. Learning to fly, like any other learning endeavor, and especially where physical skill is involved, demands continuity. The world champion boxer, Little League ball player, concert pianist, the surgeon, Olympic hopeful, all must learn, train, and practice on a continuous basis. Otherwise, it's do it over, 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. When flight training is interrupted for any appreciable length of time, and for whatever reason, the inevitable result, do it again. And beyond any question, the leading cause for lengthy and expensive delays and interruptions in the flying lessons is failing to understand the role of the required FAA written test. Ideally, the FAA test would be prepared for and passed before training begins, or soon thereafter, because you see, the written test tests your knowledge of subject matter that's basic to your overall training. It does not test your understanding of flying proficiency and skill. Not one single question asks, how do you make a crosswind takeoff? Or recover from a stall? How do you make a short field landing or a crosswind landing? All questions deal with regulations, airport procedures, meteorology, navigation, aircraft performance, things that ideally you'd learn beforehand so that you could know what to expect when flight training begins. That is why there are no minimum flight hours required for taking the FAA written test. You can take it with 0 flight time. Ideally, prepare for the written test and pass it very early in the training program. This can be proven conclusively and immediately by considering the world's most professional flight training organizations, the U.S. military, airlines, and accredited colleges offering aviation courses. At those schools, the student is prepared for and must pass the written test before being allowed near the airport, let alone into the cockpit of an airplane. And the reason is simple. Where acquisition of knowledge is concerned, what does this chart symbol mean, or how do I handle that navigation problem? What do I do under this given set of circumstances? Where acquisition of knowledge is concerned, the cockpit of an airplane is the poorest possible learning environment. There are too many things going on. Your attention must be devoted to the development of flying proficiency and skill, and most especially during the early stages of your training. The cockpit is not the place to learn. What is the depth of ground effect? What causes detonation in an aircraft engine? Why is frost so hazardous? And if you move, how long do you have to notify the FAA of that change of address? Those are FAA test questions. The time to learn that subject matter addressed by those questions is now, before flight training begins. However, that's a lot easier said than done. The very nature of flight training being overwhelmingly fun, and there's no other word for it, cannot help but create an attitude of impatience on the part of the student. let's get on with it. I had my first lesson a week ago, another one yesterday afternoon. I'm scheduled again this morning, and I cannot wait. We'll worry about the books next month. Operator to counsel you to stop before you start would be turning business away and will not happen. More likely, you'll be encouraged to see and at the same time study for the written exam. And that certainly has merit, because, let's face it, most of us initially approach learning to fly as a sort of recreation or fun. It needs not be viewed with strict military rigidity, where every second and minute must count. It's fun, and let's keep it that way. But failing to simultaneously prepare for the written test can, and definitely will, more than double the cost of flight training and take a lot of enthusiasm away from it. If you were to ask 100 licensed pilots, and especially those that paid more than twice as much for their training as they should have, what their advice would be as to when to prepare for and pass the written, 100 answers would be, do it now. Because once that hurdle is over, flight training becomes even more meaningful and enjoyable than it already is. Now comes the real problem, finding a practical, effective way to prepare yourself for the test. That's the purpose of this demonstration cassette sent to you by Flight Tech Incorporated, is to do just that. Demonstrate the cubic simple effectiveness employed in our cassette ground school that's trained thousands of pilots in preparation for the written exams. Studying aviation materials need not be difficult, complex, and time-consuming. It is only so if and when a teacher fails to understand that basic explanations of various topics must be made before progressing to the more difficult aspects of that topic or subject. My name is Larry. I narrate the entire course, and my promise to you is to keep it casual, straightforward, and simple. For the demonstration, we chose generally rough aviation weather break. Weather area has the reputation of being tough and demanding, but like any other subject, it is difficult to formulate in tough. With any learning, regardless of the subject or topic, three questions must be solved by the student. What do I need to know about this? Why do I need to know it? How does it affect me? And equally important, how do I know if I properly retained it or learned it? During the course, I'll deliver the subject matter in a way that solves just those three questions. What do I need to know? Why do I need to know it? And then we'll work to keep you maintained